What's up, guys? We are live. It's Monday at the end of September, and it's Crush Live Call-ins, and we do this show every Monday at 5:45 Eastern Time, except for next week when I am officially doing the TCH live commentary. That's right, next week. I told some of you guys that I might be doing it this week, but you can always stay apprised as to when the call-in stream will happen because I put up an event. And of course, this live call-in stream will go unlisted. So you need to watch it live if you want to catch it live. And then, of course, we will keep the best hands and we will display them in graphical format for our Crush Live call-in shows that come out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, sometimes Thursday. So if you want to get in on the show, you can shoot me an email, Bart at crushlivepoker.com, Bart at crushlivepoker.com. I try to watch every single one of them. I try to read every single email that I get. I don't get to them all. I don't get to give a personalized response to all of them. But we've got 4 hand calls here today. We did have a non-hand call. I'm just checking my messages right here. We did have a non-hand call, but that guy doesn't look like he's going to come through. So we did a quick patch job with a hand. We've had a lot of non-hand calls, so we're going to go straight hand calls. So here we go. Let's start it off here. And this is Garland. He's a long time Crush Live Poker subscriber. Been on the show many, many times. Usually calls with hands from the Bay Area or Grayton. Is that where you're calling? Talking about a hand from Grayton Casino up in, was that in Sonoma Valley?
Yeah, Santa Rosa area.
Santa Rosa. Okay, cool.
Grayton, yeah, in Petaluma area, yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's get into it here. So you have a hand. I'm pretty sure that these are hands that are what, like 2-5, what, 1K cap, something like that? Is that what the structure is?
Oh, since the pandemic, they installed plexiglass and it's 7-handed.
Okay.
They added a blind, so now it's
Oh.
2, 3, 5 blinds.
Okay.
And then there's a $1,000 cap.
Do they put that blind on the button like they do the weirdos in the Bay Area?
The line on the button?
Yeah, they in San Jose they put the $2 on the button, don't they?
Yeah. It's the third blind is on the button.
Okay. Every time I play up there, I always fold my button, not realizing that I'm already in for 2. Kind of pisses me off. But anyways, okay. So 2, 3, 5, 1K cap, 7-handed. You're playing outdoors? Is that right?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's indoors.
Oh, it's an Indian casino, right?
Indoors.
It's an Indian casino, right? Ah, okay.
Yeah, they operate off of sovereign land, I guess.
Okay. All right. So 2, 3, 5, 1K cap.
Right. Okay. So the hand. So villain is under the gun OMC type player.
Okay. OMC, old man coffee. Old man coffee type, right? Under the gun. Okay.
Old man, regular. I'd play with him many times.
Okay.
Very straightforward post flop. His big bets are to be respected. We are 2,300 deep, so quite deep.
Okay.
Small blind in the hand is about maybe $1,000 in his stack.
Okay.
Anyway, pre-flop, this OMC raises to $20. Standard raise, first in.
Yep.
So the loose passive in the small blind calls the 20, and I have ace of spades, queen of hearts. I contemplate squeezing for just like half a second, but snap back because this is an OMC, and I just opt the flat. This is probably the bottom end of my calling range for non-paired hands.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're slightly incentivized to 3-bet here pre-flop because of the dead money from the small blind. Most of the time, if this was just heads up, I think we would almost always call here. So it's just that additional third person in the small blind. But I know what you're saying in the sense that this guy probably has a strong hand, right, from this position.
Yeah, I don't think he doesn't. He's not like raising like ace 3 suited or something like that. It's going to be a hand for value.
Okay, so about $60 to the flop, is that right?
So 55 after the rake.
Okay.
Flop comes ace of diamonds, queen of spades, six of diamonds.
Ace of diamonds, queen of spades, six of diamonds. So you
Six
have,
of,
right? Six of diamonds.
yeah,
So you have ace of spades, queen of hearts. So you flop top two.
that's right.
Okay.
So the action checks to under the gun and OMC.
Mm-hmm.
He bets $100.
Wow. Overbets the pot, huh?
2x the pot almost. Yeah. I know this is not a bluff already. I'm not really happy with the situation. And I was planning to just call the flop and the turn and evaluate the river. That was my plan because we're so deep. And you can, even though I'm blocking aces and queens, you have one combo of aces, one combo of queens, and three combos of sixes. You know, it's even though I block those, I still feel those are in his range when he bets $100.
That's interesting that you say that because I was thinking the same thing off the top of my head, right? Like, obviously, you know, aces and queens, right? You're behind too. It doesn't seem like this guy's opening sixes, but you block those. And then the other thought that I have here is that isn't he more likely to make this sort of large sizing protectionist type of bet with ace king as opposed to, say, like pocket aces or pocket queens? I would almost, I mean, I feel comfortable if you think he'll give you action. Because I know you don't have necessarily the laggiest image, Garland. But if you think you can get action versus ace king, you know, obviously it depends on what the small blind does. But let's say, for example, the small blind folded out. If you think you can get action from ace king, I don't mind starting building a pot up because it seems very, very consistent with ace king. But you said you said in the email that the small blind called? Is that right?
Yeah. So what made me reconsider the option was small blind called. You just flat call in the middle, and medium. My thought is he could have a flush draw, maybe even a big flush draw with like a king 10 of diamonds or king jack of diamonds, something like that. You know,
Yeah.
he could have a big diamond draw, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in my mind, okay, I want to. So that's what triggered me to change my action. So I like to. I wanted to raise an amount that did several things. It would keep ace king in his range in OMC if he has ace king.
Right.
It's a charge small blind an amount that he will call with flush draw. And the thirdly is I would, and tentatively don't do this often, but I would quote unquote find out where I'm at. If OMC goes over the top of my check raise, I think I can pretty easily and comfortably fold, knowing that at best I'm chopping against this guy.
Well, I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, we don't necessarily want to find out where we're at, but you can certainly raise fold for value. It's sort of saying the same thing. I mean, you're not specifically finding out where you're at, but I think there's another reason to raise here, especially with this guy calling, is that, I mean, not only for the reasons that you pointed out, but if you overcall here and this guy has ace king, even on like a real brick turn, you actually might risk it getting checked through. Now, maybe he does blast because he's scared of the draws, but sometimes people get antsy, right? When multiple people call them, like they're getting trapped. So you don't see the frequency of a bet on the turn, even on a blank, when it goes call, call. So you almost have to take the betting lead away. I mean, I do like a check raise. What size did you make it?
275.
Okay. So you make it pretty small, the 275, for the reasons that you stated. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So under gun, OMC, he calls pretty fast.
Okay.
And then small blind snap mucks.
Interesting. Snap folds. Okay.
Snap folds. So small blind, I don't think has a flush draw anymore. I think he would have called.
You think he had like a weak ace or something?
Yeah, I think he had an ace. That's probably the best I can say. Anyway, he folded, and yeah, we go to the turn.
So it's about 705 in there, according to my calculation now.
Right, it's about 700.
Right. Garland has ace queen in the big blind, and it's ace of diamonds, queen of spades, six of diamonds. Checked over to UTG, bets 100. Small blind calls, you make it 275. UTG OMC calls, fold about 700 to 705, moving to the turn. Okay, what's the turn?
King of clubs.
Oh, Okay. King of clubs. That's not a good card.
You're right. Exactly.
That's not a good card.
Um,
Okay. I mean, I think I would check here and see what the guy
I,
does.
and yes, I check.
Okay.
Because at this point I can beat nothing. And he bets 500.
Wow. UTGOMC, as I'm writing in the notes, bets 500 into 700 now. And I don't even know. I mean, the other thing that this changes, obviously, he's not going to be bet calling with pocket kings. I don't think he's bet calling with king queen. Remember, you've got another player behind. You've check raised two people, right? So any of those light hands, that they don't really do anything. I mean, I don't know if he opens Jack 10 of diamonds. Obviously, the straight gets there on the turn. And then I don't know. Usually, people at this level aren't like of the thinking where they're going to start to pile money as a semi bluff with like King Jack or King 10 of diamonds, which of course would be a combo draw on the flop that now turns a pair. Him trying to get you specifically off of like ace six, ace queen, something like that. It's just, I think I just fold here, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he bets 500 into 700. I think I might fold. I mean, yeah, you're getting pot odds, but I just, yeah, I just, like I said, just an experience-based thing is that really the only thing you're ahead of here is King X of diamonds, like starting to run a bluff, or I get King Jack of diamonds starting to run a bluff, King 10 of diamonds, or if he somehow is just totally clueless and he has King Queen of diamonds and he thinks it's the nuts because it's ace of diamonds, queen of spades, six of diamonds, so that would be two pair and the nut flush draw. But obviously you have a queen in your hand. There's only a few combos, and all the combos of ace king are out there. I think I just dumped the hand. Did you? And so you folded, right?
I did. I folded.
And then did you ever find out what happened here?
I did.
Okay.
So the king actually ended up saving me. I flashed my cards to him, and I offered him $5 to show his hand.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't take it. But he showed sixes.
Sixes. Wow. Well, shows 6-6. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously you did get let off the hook a little bit. I'm not really. If I had sixes in his spot, I'm not sure if I like his sizing all that much, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I guess it's possible. I mean, you could have a combo draw you yourself. So if you had King X of diamonds, maybe you check call and you don't continue to run a bluff. But, I mean, we can overfold in these spots against OMCs. You certainly did get let off the hook here a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, in retrospect, I'm so deep, and I feel like, during the situation, would I not go broke? Maybe not necessarily go broke, but why lose a lot of money if that king didn't come? And did my flop plan make sense? That was really the crux of the.
Well, it'd be interesting if he three bet. Are you saying that if he three bet the flop, you would have folded?
Yes. If he three bet the flop, he's got aces or queens.
Wow, that's strong. Right? That is definitely strong if you three bet the flop and folds. Some people in the live chat, by the way, of course, I'm always going to be interacting with the live chat. Some guys say that they love the big bet with sixes. Yeah, the big bet with bottom set here on a board like this actually makes a whole lot of sense. What wouldn't make sense is if he had like pocket aces here. And to a lesser extent, I mean, he could have queens and try to get value from ace X, but certainly with sixes, in these spots, you actually want to have, if you're the pre-flop raiser, the lower sets when the players who are in the hand, when they haven't three bet, because bottom set basically is the nuts, right? Because no one's going to have aces and no one's going to have queens. And then you unblock all the hands that they can call with, right? So right. I would rather have sixes here in this scenario if I was this guy than have aces to get the value, right? So it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, that's a good fold, Garland. I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. All right. Again, if you want to get on the show, email bart@crushlivepoker.com if you are a Crush Live Poker subscriber. And again, we've got Crush Live Poker version 2 coming right around the corner, hopefully in 1 to 2 months. Whole new revamped site. If you are a Crush Live Poker subscriber, indicate to me you're a subscriber, and I will give you priority. Let's go to 774. 774. You are. Oop! I put. Okay, I'm gonna mute this guy. All right, here we go. 774. You are next. 774. Hello.
Hey, what's up, Art?
Good. How's it going?
All right. How you doing?
Good. So you got a hand for us here?
Yeah, I got a 1-3 from Boston Billiards.
1-3 no limit. Boston Billiards. I keep saying that I have not been to Boston Billiards, which is in Nashua, New Hampshire. And the interesting thing about the sort of northeast poker scene, and I'm talking about recently since Encore opened, is that Encore took all the games, right, from New Hampshire, but now New Hampshire has lived free or die, so they're open, and I don't even know if Encore is going to reopen. Supposedly, like, they have put slot machines in their poker room or something like that.
Yeah, they definitely did. I know a couple of people that deal blackjack there, and yeah, they dumped a bunch of slot machines in there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that means that they're not planning on coming back, but I guess we'll see. So what's the structure here, 1-3 Boston Billiards?
So it is a 500 max.
Okay.
I think it's either 200 or 300 minimum.
Okay. So 500 max.
So yeah, for the hand, I'm not 100% sure about the main. Some of the other players, but the main villain was like about 750. So he was the effective stack.
Wait a minute. Did you have him covered?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I if you were gonna say he had 750 and you only had 400 and you was the effective stack, I was gonna throw my headphones away. But okay.
No, I know.
Okay.
I heard you making the joke about it the other day. No,
okay.
Yeah,
all right. Main villain effect 750 effective. He recovers. Okay.
All right. So the cutoff in this hand opened. I was in the small blind. The cutoff opened to 12. The button called, and then I 3-bet to 60 with ace of diamonds, ace of clubs.
Okay.
Thinking I should have gone a little bit bigger, honestly. But anyways, the big blind cold called, and then the cutoff and the button both call.
So which one's the main villain?
The main villain is on the button.
Okay, so a shorter stack guy opens for 12. The button calls. You 3-bet.
I think everyone's actually pretty deep. This was my first, literally my first hand. I was at a different table and just moved. So, but everyone was pretty deep.
Okay. But I mean,
anyways,
yeah, so 750. By the way, can you move? Do they let you move? So if you're this is something that they would never let you do in LA, but it's different in different places. If you are playing in a 500 cap game at Boston Billiards and you move tables, say you went up, say you won and you're like at 1,000, can you move that? Can you move your stack over to the new table, or do they make you chip down?
Oh yeah. I do that all the time.
Oh, okay.
If I don't like the table that I'm at,
see,
no one ever says anything.
In LA, they only let you do that in a must move because they treat it like a new game. But okay, so cut off to 12. Button, who's going to be the primary villain at 750 calls. You 3-bet to 60, which is 4x plus the raise. I have no problem with that. And then the big blind cold calls, cutoff calls, and then the button double flats, quote unquote, which means flats and flats. And now you're at 240, 4 ways with aces and a 3-bet pot, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So the flop was 5 of clubs, 6 of spades, 6 of hearts.
Okay. And you've got ace of diamonds, ace of clubs.
Yep.
Okay.
I wasn't thrilled about it, but I still think I can get some value. So I've been trying to do, in multi-way pots, like a little bit of a smaller bet sizing.
Sure.
So I went for 80. I don't think that if that's good, but
I think that's fine. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, when you hit one of these boards like this, it's just really hard for somebody to have anything here. I mean, I think you start to get into larger boards when, even if it was like queen deuce deuce or something where they would have some Broadway cards like in their ranges. But on
Okay.
boards like this, I think it's pretty. I think that that's good. And then
Okay.
you might
Cool.
even get a spaz raise in here from somebody
All right.
like, and you could even get away with even sometimes going smaller. But okay, so you bet 80, which is about 1/3 the size of the pot.
Yep. And everyone folded except for the button.
All right, so fold to button who calls. This is the guy who just initially called the cutoff raise. So not really like a super strong range. And it's not like he's trapping because he would have back raised. I think that's another key thing here. Right?
Yeah,
Like if he
definitely.
flatted with
Yeah.
aces or kings, he's gonna back raise when you 3-bet and this other guy cold calls, right? So it's not really
Yeah,
a
I also
trapping
thought
hand.
with so many people, well, now he's gone, but I also thought at that point with me raising with so many people in there and then betting out, I figured if he had like a 6 or 5s or something that he was gonna raise. I mean, so I actually at this point didn't think his hand was that strong. I was putting him
Well, yeah,
on some, like, medium pocket pairs.
but you bet and the other two guys folded though, right?
Yeah, but what I mean is like I just figured that it was kind of clear that I had a pretty strong hand, so I betting into 4 people on the flop. So I figured if he had like a 6 or pocket 5s that he would raise it. I mean, I guess he could just call, but
I'm just saying that he's closing the action. I mean, you see a lot of live players, slow play, but anyways, you bet 80, call.
Yeah.
His pot's 400.
Yes.
Okay.
So the turn was the 2 of diamonds.
Okay.
And then so yeah, I was still trying to target like
it looks like a pair to me, like 7s, 8s, maybe something like that.
Yes.
It could be like ace 5.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he could have a draw too, like a 7-8. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily even be, and then, if he has like deuce, deuce or 5-5, you're beat anyways. Or if you had a 6, you're beat anyways. But his range, this is an interesting one because his range is kind of weakish. Of the hands
that's what I thought.
Of the hands that you beat. Like probably like he should have like the best hand he should have in terms of overpairs here really would be like, I mean, I've seen guys like flat 10s in this spot, but a lot of those hands really should be 3-bet off. So you don't want to get in these situations. You have to understand like, well, what am I trying to target here? And then depending on what the run out is, right? Like this is not a 4-bet pot where you're like, I'm just going to get it. I'm getting in mounds and mounds of money. I'm going to cooler queens or kings, right? I mean, he shouldn't really have those hands here.
Yeah, I will say that I've noticed quite a few people in this player pool like flat with jacks, which I know is
button
odd.
versus
So
cutoff.
I don't even think
pretty
they're
weak.
thinking in positions like that at all. Honestly, not everybody, but there's quite a few players there that are totally clueless, like positionally clueless, and so I definitely think. I wouldn't give them like every combo of it, but it wouldn't have surprised me to see it.
I would probably bet 150 to 200. I mean, what I was trying to say is like I could sort of go back and say sometimes if he for some reason was wild, you could even occasionally check. It's not even for pot control. It's just to let him stab, or you're going to get only 2 streets. So if it goes check, check, then you just blast the river. But in general, I would just go straight forward in these spots, maybe 150.
Okay, so I bet 200.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I was going for any of the pocket pairs up to jacks, I guess, but
Any calls?
So he called. Yep.
So the pot's 800 now, and it looks like you have maybe 400 left. So you have half a pot size bet left, right?
Yeah. And the river was the 8 of clubs.
The 8 of clubs. I was trying to think of like what kind of rivers would I want to see here. Obviously, like it would be nice if there was a 6 at the end.
Yeah.
Or a deuce. Yeah. You know what I mean? A 6 or definitely. A deuce. Those would be nice. An 8. I mean, now you lose to 8s, and 7, 8 pairs. If those hands continued on, it doesn't look like there was any type of backdoor diamond draw here. You only have half a pot size bet left, so it's kind of an awkward spot here.
Yeah, my whole thinking was that I still thought that there was a good amount of hands for that I could get value from. So I didn't want it to check through.
Well, yeah, no, I get
And
that. I mean, what's awkward here is that, you know, maybe the right sizing is like 200, but if he jams
Okay.
for like all in for 400, I mean, are you going to fold? I mean, it's going to be like,
yeah,
I mean, if you bet 200 and he jams for 400 total, the pot's going to be 1400, 200 for you to call. It's just really,
yeah.
really hard to fold given those pot
Uh,
odds. Now, if you were deeper, right? Like if you had over a pot size bet, maybe the sizing is still the same and you might consider bet folding, but I wouldn't want to jam here and have 400. I feel like is a big bet, even though it's only half the size of the pot. We always talk about that in live poker, like the absolute value size of the bet. They probably
Okay.
don't. I mean, that's a big pot. So you don't want to scare
Yeah.
somebody away, you know?
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I went all in. And,
Okay.
I don't know. That I was just trying to see if it was too thin. Like I know it's a big bet for this game, but I don't know. I just had a half pot size bet in my mind. I guess.
I mean,
But I know what you're saying.
I can't
by
really
the size
speak.
of the
I
pot.
mean, I can't really speak for the level of competition. I mean, if a guy's going to call with 7-8, if he's going to call with pocket sevens, if he's going to call with pocket nines, then it's not too
Yeah, I
thin.
know. I'm not.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends. Unfortunately, I didn't really know him too well, and I had just sat down, so I wasn't 100% sure. But
So, and then what
uh,
ended up happening? Did you lose? Was he slow playing something?
no, he snap called. He had 3-4 offsuit.
3-4 offsuit.
Yeah.
3-4 offsuit. 4 straight.
But I mean, my whole thinking is like I'm not worried about losing the hand. I don't really care. I'm just more like, if he's got 3-4 offsuit, he's gonna have a bunch of junk. So I'm assuming
Well, I think
it's probably not too thin then, right? I mean,
I
don't know.
think one of the things that you can take away from this hand is that the nature of the double flat configuration where, and this is why the double flat, like it's really, really easy to bluff guys in that spot and I'm talking about the double flat, which is somebody just calls a bet and then calls your 3-bet, right? And the other guy gets out of the way. They don't really know that they're actually supposed to defend more because maybe top pair is like the best hand that they're ever going to arrive with. They have no concept of that at the end. So you can just, endlessly barrel them off. But on the flip side, though, their range is weakish. So you have to look at how the board sort of connects with the weakish range and what are you going to get paid off by here. So like I said, I'm actually much more concerned with this run out with aces versus a double flat as opposed to just even like an open and a 3-bet and a call, right? Like,
Okay.
I mean, if this guy opened from the under the gun and you 3-bet out of the blind and he called, yeah, of course I'm going to go bet, right?
Okay.
But this is,
All right.
this is a double
That was actually
flat.
my other question, because I've actually been running into a lot. I've been running kind of bad lately, and a lot of the pots have been sort of like this, where I'll 3-bet with like aces or kings, and then I kind of barrel off for like 3 streets. It's all low cards, and then like I just keep getting shown sets. Like, so I'm just trying to make sure that I felt like if in this pot I wasn't going. I know it's kind of a different situation, but yeah, I just want to make sure I'm not going too thin in some of the spots.
I don't think it's, I mean,
So.
a case could be made that it might be a little bit thin, but
Okay.
I just don't know. You're kind of handcuffed by, I feel like, the stack size a little bit here.
Yeah, well, this was because of the like multi-way, like how big the pot got. I think it was a little different too.
Sure.
But,
I mean, that's the other,
yeah.
like I said, I don't envy people that play in these cap games and extreme multi-way scenarios where, you're just dealing with very, very small, SPRs. But I appreciate the call. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks a lot, Bart.
All right.
Take care.
So people are asking me in the live chat, have I ever played at the Kennel Club in Florida? I believe I have. So obviously I used to go down for a few years. I went down and played that 10 million guarantee, and then they reduced it to a $5 million guarantee at Seminole Hard Rock. And I played at a place where you had to go up an escalator to the poker room, which was a dog track too. I think that was the Kennel Club. So yes, I think, and then they had some slots in the bottom. I think that they've actually outlawed dog racing now in Florida. I mean, coming from Massachusetts, they used to have dog racing in Massachusetts too. And there was a rule about Florida where you had to have dog racing in order to have poker, but I think they changed the rule. I'm talking about greyhound racing. Greyhounds, fast dogs. All right, let's go to our next caller here, 714. You are up next, sir. 714. Hello.
Hey, Bart. How you doing today?
Good.
Good. All right. So, hand here from a 1-2 game. This was a home game. Me and the main villain in this hand have about $430 effective stacks. And so I'll just kind of jump right in here. The villain is up tonight. Usually when I play with this guy, he's up. He's one of the better players, a little bit younger. He's solid and aggressive as well. But this game definitely plays, a lot of limping, very loose, passive, a lot of calling going on as you might expect at a home game. So jump in.
What just out of curiosity, what region of the country?
This is in Southern California, in Orange County.
You're playing in a home game in Orange County?
Yes.
Oh man, make sure the cops don't bust that shit up.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how much longer that game will be around, so I gotta get in when I can.
And you said you were a new CLP sub too, right?
What was that?
You're a new CLP subscriber, is that right? Didn't you say that?
Nice. Last Friday. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping you're enjoying the site, and there's gonna be a lot of changes coming up here soon too, with a lot of the content, organization, curriculum, and stuff like that. So, okay, so 1-2 home game, $430 effective. Okay.
Yep. So, under the gun +1 limps in. Villain, who's the main villain in this hand, he's in middle position. He limps behind. Cutoff limps, and then I'm in the big blind. I have Jack-8 of hearts. I had been raising from the blinds quite a bit over the course of the night, probably about 6 times with King, Queen, Ace, Jack suited, kind of hands like that. But the last couple times I'm starting to get played back at a little bit here. So I was debating just bumping this up and trying to, scoop the blind or all the free juice out there. But because I've been played back at a lot lately, I decided to just check with the Jack-8 of hearts here. So we're going 4 ways to the flop here.
Right. So just out of curiosity, just because sometimes this actually will affect the pre-flop, because I know it affects it on a lot of agent sites too. These agent sites, because there's a really high rake. It's similar to live poker. Were they taking like a rake out of the pot?
They were,
Okay.
But it was taking a rake, but they normally didn't scoop it till once it got obviously to the flop, like typically. So, but
Right.
They were taking a rake, yeah.
Which of course, like, because if you're playing small stakes games in casinos in LA, it's a drop, which is even worse, because they'll take the full collection after the flop as opposed to a percentage, which is a rake. But obviously, yes, Jack-8 of hearts. Okay, you check. So it's 4 ways. Okay.
It's 4 ways. So there's $8 in the flop,
Yep.
basically. So the flop comes 8 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, 7 of clubs.
Okay, so you've got 3 8s.
Yeah. Trips.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm first to act. I lead here. Obviously, I want to start building a pot. I have a good hand, but because of the draws, straight draws, flush draws, all sorts of combo draws, I want to get value as well. So I bet 5. Under the gun +1 calls. He's very loose, passive. He's kind of one of those guys that will call a lot of flops with a lot of different types of draws, whether they're backdoors or open-ended straights or flush, and then he'll kind of give up if he doesn't get there. So I'm not super concerned about him, but I'm pretty sure he's on a draw just based off that call. The villain, the main villain, though, for middle position, he raises to 15. Cutoff folds, and then this is my first, real big decision in the hand. I decide to just call, and that was partly why I wanted to call in to see, if raising maybe might have been the better play. But as played, under the gun calls as well. So now we're going 3 ways to the turn.
So do you want me to give you the answer in 2011, 2010, 2000? No, I would say 2000. Even actually, you know what? It was all the way up to maybe 2016 before a lot of these computers started getting in the game. What I was gonna say is that I listen. There aren't that many limp pots anymore. I feel like in live poker, except when you get down to these low levels. So I'm gonna give you my take on. When the games that I used to play at, Commerce 510 used to play like this, I would always be a pretty big advocate of fast playing your hand in the form of leading out with trips. I used to make the most amount of money with that. You would just lead out. Now, boards that have trips on them and limp pots are not all equal. And what I mean by that is that you can have a board that's 9-9 deuce rainbow, where you have a 9 and there aren't any draws out there. And if you bet, what are people calling you with? Because unless they're really bad, they're not going to call with the deuce, right? Or you could have a board like deuce, deuce 9 or deuce, deuce 10, and you have trip deuces out of the big blind, and they will call you with top pair. Those are on very non-draw heavy boards. Here, it's slightly worse because it's 8-8-7. I'd rather it be 7-7-8 and you had, or let's say 8-8-9 or 8-8-10, but there still are a fair amount of draws out here too. And I think I actually like the play of leading, because if you have trips here and a lot of people have draws, what I'll find is a lot of times they will get checked through. If you go for a checker, is you won't get it, but you'll still get a lot of people to call. So I do like that bet. Now, so you bet 5, MP1 calls, MP1 raises to 15. So normally, again, I mean, this is a situation where when you take a look at, if you're ever concerned about your kicker with an 8, right? The 8 of clubs is out there, the 8 of diamonds is out there, and the 7 of clubs is out there. Now you have Jack 8 of hearts. So there's only one 8 left, right? And really the only thing that you're getting really kind of out-kicked by, if people were playing normal ranges, would be like Ace 8 suited. Now at 1-2, sure, you're going to run into people over-limping with Queen 8, with King 8.
Yeah.
The question, though, is that when you get into these situations, when you're looking at the sort of quality of your trips, will they play like 8-9, 10-8? I would probably say that chances are you have an 8 out kicked more so than not. You're beating 9-8, you're beating 10-8, you're beating 6-8, you're losing to Ace King. It's probably really close. Like if you had Queen 8 or King 8, yeah, for sure. But just deceptively, because you've let out and no one ever really expects you to have an 8. Usually I would put in a bet 3-bet. I don't think it's terrible just to call, but obviously now you're going to have to be wary of the guy behind you. So under the gun calls.
And that was part of the thing. Part of the thing too, also just real quick, is we are really deep. You know, if I was shallower, right? If I had less chips, I think I would have been more inclined to just jam this up and try to get the money in. But because him and I have effective 430 and there's $8 going into the hand, I wasn't sure how comfortable I was going to be if we start getting into a 4-bet or even a 5-bet scenario on the flop. But your points, I mean, I just decided to call. I just couldn't kind of make up my mind on what the play was. But anyway.
So it's 40. So now the pot is like, so you go 45. So now it's like.
It's like 53.
Okay.
Roughly 55, I think, somewhere in that range. 53 to 60, let's say.
And you have Jack 8, and the board is 8-8-7. Again, for the podcast, you lead out in a limp pot out of the blind. Under the gun +1 calls. MP1 raises to 15. You call. Under the gun also calls. Okay.
Yeah. So we're 3-handed now. So the turn is a 2 of diamonds.
Okay.
So now we have a second flush draw out there.
Yep.
Outside of the diamond, obviously a fairly innocuous card here. I'm not really thinking that, it's helping anybody. I decide to check here. Under the gun checks, and villain bets out 55, so basically a pot-sized bet. I elect to just call, and under the gun +1 folds. So now it's just heads up.
Okay. I mean, now at this point, now that he's bet again here for this sizing, I would probably just kind of take this into call mode. I mean, he's overbetting the size of the pot. Again, you're sort of in between. You're kind of like in the middle of kickers and things like this. This guy's obviously repping a pretty strong hand for protection. What I will say, though, is that guys love to slow play at this level. So it would be very, very surprising if he was full somehow. Like if he had like 7s full, something like that, because I feel like he would want to sort of lure in the people with the draws. Again, I could be wrong, but this is one of my, it's just usually people, they're not going to be betting for protection against draws for the sizing because obviously they're full, already. So. Yeah,
I wasn't putting him on a full house. Obviously at this point, alarm bells are definitely going off. I mean, they started to go off a little bit on the flop, but now, he has my attention. I'm starting to think, okay, if he's got an 8, I'm probably ahead. You're right. If he has a full house, is he really going to play it like this? At this level, unlikely. what do you think the percentage chance of him having a hand like, let's say, 9-10 of diamonds or 9-10 of clubs is? I mean, I think that maybe isn't a big part of his range, but based on how this guy's played before, I think it's a hand he could have. But that's probably one of the worst hands he's going to be doing this with, right?
Well, it all goes back to, like, you know, how aware these players are. I might, like, again, like I said, I haven't seen pots like this in a long time, but if I was in this guy's perspective, I actually might attack this hand in his perspective, but this is giving this guy a lot of credit. I'm just going to talk out loud here. And the reason why is because normally I wouldn't expect someone at this level to lead out with trips. So you lead out, this guy calls, I raise with, say, 9-10 of clubs, 9-10 of diamonds. You call, the other guy calls. That's usually going to indicate to me that no one has an 8 here. And then on this deuce, I'm just sort of going to put down the hammer. So it's possible. Because I wouldn't think that someone's so you are sort of kind of underplaying your hand, or sort of under-repping your hand, which is a term that's actually quite misused, I feel like. So I don't have any problem with the way that you played it right now. So it's 163 right now. All right, so what's the river?
Yep. River's a 10 of diamonds. So the backdoor draw got there. And so, yeah, there's about 165 roughly.
Okay.
At this point, I already made up my mind on the turn. I was like, I'm going to check the river and then evaluate calling based on what the river is and how much he bets. So I check here, and he fires off 175.
Now, I have to say something. So, all right, so 175. Okay, so this is Villain 1 who overlimped it. MP1 bets 175. I have to say something that's important about that river card, though. And that is, well, obviously backdoor diamonds come in. So now, like you said, 9-10 of diamonds is not possible.
Right.
But one of the other things, too, is that if you ever thought that the guy might be doing this with like 9-10, a 10 pairs up now. So now I think that you can take that out of the range, which is quite interesting. This is different than if it was like an offsuit queen. If it was an offsuit queen and you're like, oh, like this guy might have a draw, then I'm going to call. Anytime when the draw pairs at the end and it gives the guy enough showdown value to check it back and he still bets, you're like, oh, this is now maybe we take 9-10 out of there, right? Like 9-10 of clubs is not going to bet 175 here. So he bets huge. He bets 175. So front door clubs now miss.
Yep.
And he's still betting, which is really interesting because, again, another thing at this level is that if he's not full here, say he has like ace-8, okay, something like that, a lot of guys will just check it back when the backdoor diamond shows up. I'm serious. They'll check it back. Not that it's a front door club, but they'll check it back. So it kind of makes me put it this way. Like, I think it's close, but I think at these levels, I wouldn't be making huge laydowns. And that part is very peculiar to me. Like I said, if it was like an offsuit queen and the guy bet again and we called and he had ace-8, that wouldn't surprise me. But here with the backdoor diamond coming in and he's still firing like really large.
Yeah, a big bet too. And I thought the same thing. I go, okay, I think I can remove 9-10 because, like you said, he has showdown value. For somebody, I mean, he's basically turning his hand into a bluff at that point and just playing this limit. I mean, people start firing, bets like that on the river. This is not just a 10. I think most of the time, it's probably player dependent, but so I think about it for a few minutes and I'm having trouble like just thinking in terms of like equity range against his, like, what are we really beating here? Unless he's just going completely off the rails and like just decided to fire and he's bluffing.
So let me say a couple things before you. It sounds to me like you call, but let me say a couple things too because I see some comments in the chat. Some people saying 8-9. I don't buy it for the same reasons. Some people saying king 8, queen 8. I mean, I guess it's possible, but again, I think that the back door, coming in tends to cut down, especially with this type of sizing. Someone else put in the chat, which is quite interesting if you watch the latest video from Friday, what about a block bet? Now, I'm generally not a fan of a block bet because block bets are used incorrectly. For a block bet, to be prudent, you have to be able to get called by worse. So a block bet actually might not be the worst play here because you can still get called by 9-10 that might check back or some sort of overplayed hand because the guy's clueless, like 7x. So that in itself actually might actually have some merit. It sounds to me like you called, right?
No, I
you didn't?
actually
Okay.
folded. I folded, and Villain showed. He goes, "Oh, I'm going to show because you're a nice guy," and he flipped over 8 deuce of spades for a full house.
Wait a minute. I have to go back to what you said. You said that this guy was one of the better players at the table?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he was on tilt or what. That was surprising to me because I hadn't seen him show down. That was the worst hand I've seen this guy show down probably in the couple sessions I've played, and he's among one of the top better winners. And so I don't know if he was just tilting or because it was such a limp party the last orbit or two. I was shocked. I mean, I thought 10-8 would have made more sense. Maybe I could see that, right? 10-8,
Right, 10-8.
okay, and then he fills up on the river.
Yep.
That was kind of what I was mainly putting him on. So I was surprised to see 8 deuce. I would have been shocked to see 8-7 as well. But
10-8 makes a lot. I mean, 10-8,
yeah.
10-8 would make a lot of sense, right? Like he's protecting turn, and then he fills at the end,
Yep.
right? 10-8,
Yep.
or over limped pocket tens or some bullshit like that, right? Like he just didn't
maybe
raise.
he was. I don't know. Yeah, he
Right.
was kind of looked for a weird hand to re-raise pre. I don't know, but I just couldn't think of a lot of hands on the end there, especially for that bet sizing at this limit where I'm ahead. Other than like you said, maybe like 8-9 or something like that. So I wasn't sure if that was the correct fold. I mean, obviously I made the right fold because he showed me, but in the totality of things, was that the correct play in the long run?
Well, here's the thing that I would say. And again, I'm making some very, very large assumptions here, but when we take a look at this hand on 8-8-7 deuce 10, when backdoor diamonds come in, if you think that someone's bet is only really representing a full house, and I've talked about why that might be, and also too, that like some of their draw portions would check back because 9-10 pairs up. So if you think that he's only representing a full house, or like maybe it's hard for him to have backdoor diamonds here, right? Because the 10 of diamonds came, unless he had like 9-6 of diamonds. But when you get into that situation and you hold one of the trip cards, I think it's hard to fold. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's hard to fold if you think that the action is only he has a full house. Yeah. Now, there might be other situations where he doesn't have a full house. I still think that I would tend to probably bet 3-bet. I mean, it's probably pretty close on the flop. So you got really unlucky on the turn. It would have been interesting if the turn was like a 3, same action, river's a 10. I think he might check it back. I definitely think he's going to check it back when the diamond comes in. So I don't know. Like I said, it's one of these things. I wouldn't be too upset about it, but I appreciate. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of making big laydowns at this level, but I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, one more caller here, and again, guys, like I said, we've got fairly low stakes hands here today, but I'm always always want to take higher stakes calls too. There was an interesting comment before we get to this last guy on the YouTube video that came out today. And the YouTube video that came out today was the do I need to balance in live poker? And it was a call that I got from Wendy from a few weeks ago. Should I balance in live no limit? You can take a look over in our channel. And what's interesting here is that there's a comment from a guy. There's a comment from a guy that I thought was definitely interesting, and he was saying that GTO will crush mid to low stakes live no limit for a top win rate. And then someone was like, that's not true because GTO would dictate that you would call in a given spot when a guy might never be bluffing, or you would bluff in a spot where a guy might never fold, which of course has a point. And then we have to kind of look at this, and we're not necessarily all talking about the same things. This is from this guy. No. GTO will crush live games. Sure, you might be losing a little not exploiting, but make no mistake, a perfect GTO player would dominate 1, 2 through 5, 10 for a near max win rate. And this is where I don't know if we're arguing about the same thing, because here is my response to this, and you can see it there. When someone says GTO, game theory optimal, are they responding as if the players in their games are playing equilibrium ranges pre-flop? And there is a huge difference between your post-flop approach on a particular board if when you raise from under the gun and someone in the hijack flats, if an equilibrium approach is probably pretty close to this, is flat less than 1% hijack versus under the gun in a non-ante 2-blind game, maybe 3-bet a certain percentage, probably 3-bet more so than flat, right? 3-bet 3%, flat 1%, whatever it is, okay? If you're in a situation where you open under the gun and hijack flats at equilibrium and that's less than 1% of hands, and it's an unbelievably condensed range, you will see the solvers reflect that almost every single flop is a check 100 when you're dealing with such a condensed range and such an extreme example, okay? Almost every single flop from out of position when dealing with such a condensed range is check 100, meaning that you're going to check any board because he's got such a tight range. Now, where the practicality comes into it, though, is that if you're playing against a live player who will VPIP as a flat 20% of the time there in the hijack as opposed to less than 1%. Is this guy who's playing GTO, is he taking that same approach, assuming that the guy's playing 1% as a flat with different textures? Because if that's the case, that's clearly not going to win you the most amount of money, right? So when people throw around this term, I don't know what they mean. Like, when I'm playing a live game and I raise and I get a couple of callers, say I've got aces or something like that, and the board might come out, queen 9-7 with a 2 flush. Now, if you were to plug in 2 flats at equilibrium and those ranges were extremely tight, that certainly very well might be reflected with a check. But if you're putting in these guys like that I play against the Lodge at 1-3 in round rock, where they're calling with queen 10 off, queen jack off, all the combinations of those, of course I'm going to bet the flop for max value. So I just wanted to bring that up. People can comment if they want there as well. But let's go to the last caller here. And this is 443. It says Baltimore area. This is 443. Is it 443 an upstate New York number?
No, it's all like DMV area, like Baltimore, Annapolis, all that.
Oh, I must be confused. I could have sworn I had a number that was 443 in Syracuse. I must be confused, but okay. All right, you got a hand for us here?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
7-handed at Maryland Live. It's 2-5.
Okay, so 2-5 Maryland Live. Are they open or is this before COVID?
This was recently. They're open now.
Are they open inside?
Yeah, they got like 40 tables that run on weekends.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. So all right, so Maryland Live 2-5 1K cap or what?
Yeah, it's 1K cap.
Okay. All right.
I'm 950 effective, and the villain has me covered.
All right. So here are 950 effective. Okay.
All right, it folds to me on the button with a ace of spades, queen of diamonds, and I make it 15.
Folds to you
And,
on
small blind
folds to you on the button, and you have ace of spades, queen of diamonds to 15.
Yes.
Okay.
The small blind folds and big blind calls.
All right. So big blind calls your heads up.
Yep.
Okay.
The flop is queen of spades, jack of diamonds, 5 of spades.
I remember this hand. Queen of spades, jack of diamonds, 5 of spades. Queen of spades, jack of diamonds, 5 of spades. So you flop top pair. You've got the ace of spades in your hand too, right?
Yep.
Okay.
He checks it. I bet 20, and he snap raises me to 65.
All right. So you bet 20, check raise to 65 here. Okay.
Yeah. I kind of think I should put in a 3-bet here, but
I mean, a
just ended up
3-bet.
calling.
I mean, a 3-bet here, I think would be pretty out there. Your hand doesn't need a ton of protection, and this is again where we get into different streets of hand composition here. Where right now on the flop, you'd rather have the ace of spades to give you the backdoor equity, so that you can continue across spade turns. This is what the computer stuff modeling says.
Yeah.
This is where the value of some of this stuff It's not necessarily the outputs of solvers, but it's how you get to it. So you'd rather have the ace of spades. Now, if the turn bricks off, now you would actually rather not have the ace of spades because you wouldn't want to unblock. You wouldn't want to block his bluffs. And then if the river comes a spade and he continues to bet, you'd rather have the ace of spades. And if it bricks out, it's just interesting how it moves from street to street. So, I mean, I would call here. You just don't really need a whole ton of protection here. You're in position.
Okay. With like the ace of hearts or something, would you 3-bet?
I don't think so, man. I mean, I think you're in position here. I don't think I'd be 3-betting the flop here a lot with just one pair. So 65 hero calls. Because also, too, remember, you're in position. So, if he checks the turn, say, for example, he check raised here 65 like he did and you calls, right? And now the turn's like a 3 and he checks. You could just go for 2 streets, right?
Yeah. All right, so that's what happened. The turn is a 2 of hearts.
Okay.
And he checks, and I bet 100.
Turn is a 2 of hearts. I think you definitely have the best hand here. So big blind checks. Hero bets 100. Okay.
And he calls.
All right. So it looks to me like the pot is about 360. Again, you open ace of spades, queen of diamonds on the button to 15. Big blind calls. Flop is queen of spades, jack of diamonds, 5 of spades. Big blind checks. You bet 20. He makes it 65 as a check raise. You call. Pot's 160. Turns a deuce of hearts. He checks. Yeah. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Big blind checks. Hero bets 100. He calls. I'm hoping that you say, by the way, it's queen of spades, jack of diamonds, 5 of spades, so the jack is not a spade. But I'm hoping that, if the river is any type of low brick here, like if it pairs the deuce, if it's like anything between like maybe a 7 and below, it's not a spade. If he checks you, I'm hoping you're going to go for value again. It was your plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so he calls, and the river is a jack of spades, and he leads for 220.
Jack of spades. Wow.
Interesting card.
So he leads for 220. So this is where we get into this situation where if he's representing, right?
How many leads?
Well, I mean, let me just talk about hand composition really quick. If for some reason, maybe this isn't necessarily the best example, but if for some reason you're trying to figure out the likelihood if the guy's got a flush or not, it's better for you to have a spade in your hand here. Now, it's a little bit different because the guy's in the big blind, so he's going to be much, much wider. But when the ranges consist of a configuration that's more condensed, where a lot of the suited hands are going to be comprised of ace-x suited, then it's even better for you to have that suit of the ace, right? That's come in here. Here, he can have a lot of spade. I mean, he can have a lot of flush cards. Like people will, you only made it 3x pre, right? I mean, he could call with like 7-4 spades here. You know what I mean? He called with 7-4 spades. Would he check raise a jack and then call the turn and then bet the river on the front door spade? That's probably unlikely. It'd probably take out jack.
I didn't think he had a jack here ever.
Yeah. And then, the bluff that you beat here is king 10. So you're saying that you think he has a flush. Is that what you're saying, basically?
Yes. Yeah.
So am I going to go down this road where you think that you would like to turn your hand into a bluff here with the ace of spades?
Yeah, I normally hate doing that with like any type of showdown value, but I did. I ended up, I raised to 550.
Well, you raised to 550. I mean, here's the thing about this. Here's the theory about this. I mean, when you get to the turn, you've put in 180. So you started with 950. So you have 770 left to the river.
Yeah, I had 220 left after I jammed.
So
maybe 550.
I mean, I think before we get to whether or not this is a good bluff, if you want to represent you've got a nut flush, or you want to represent you have a full house, I would think that you would jam here if you're trying to get the guy off of a flush. I mean, that's what polarization means, because you want to give him a worse price, right? You want to give him a worse price. So I feel like if I wanted to take that for that, I would jam. I just hate trying to get somebody to fold the flush here at 2-5. You know what I mean? I mean, you'd have to really, really know the guy here to make this play. And I wonder if your hand is too far up. Like, this very well might be a call with the ace of spades. I don't know if you need to turn this into a bluff. Now, if you were to say, hey, Bart, I know the guy's got a flush here. I'm just going to jam, and he's going to fold a flush. Well, that's a fairly large exploit. But something in the chat saying bad raise, only better calls. This guy's bluffing here. You're not raising, right, for value.
I'm not raising for value.
So again, like I said, like if you're bluffing, I think it would be a jam here. I mean, do you know this guy?
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty like aggressive, but it was like an older man too, so I didn't think he would call with like weak hands. I mean, you want me to tell you what happened?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just trying to get down into the thought process. I mean, before you tell us, if you had it to do over, are you on board with my thinking that this should be a jam if you're bluffing here?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's what most people told me, but I think I'd rather fold than call here too.
Yeah, I mean that for
sure.
I mean that's certainly, for sure. I mean, the other thing too is I'm trying to think if you had ace king with the ace of spades. I'm trying to think of how that fits in here because ace king with the ace of spades might be
I don't think I'd turn that into a bluff. You think that'd be better?
Well, what hand has more well, I mean, it's interesting, right? Ace king with the ace of spades, which is a bet and a call across a check raise because you got a backdoor spade draw and a gut shot, and then on the turn he checks. So you're like, I don't care, fuck this guy, I'm going to bet the turn. And if he holds on, I'm just going to go across like a spade river or something like that, right? But now he bets a spade river. You block king 10, but, do you accidentally lose here? It probably hurts you the fact that you block some of those primary bluffs. I don't know if the hand itself actually I don't know. I mean, ace king in terms of hand equivalency might actually be the same as ace queen, unless you somehow accidentally lose. I mean, it would be sometimes you see some wacky shit, man, where a guy like check raises with like pocket sevens to find out where he's at, and then he doesn't believe you. He thinks he has ace king on the turn, so he check calls, and on the river he just like spaz bluffs. And you call with ace king and you're like, oh shit, I lost. I mean, so there's a couple conflicting things here with that. So what did you end up doing? You made it 550. Excuse me, what did he do?
And he called with 6-7 of spades.
And if you jammed, what do you think you would have done? Do you think it would have been the same thing?
He was calling me either way now, I guess. I guess they don't fold flushes in live poker, no matter what.
Yeah, I just, I mean, this is, it's just one of these things where I wouldn't have an approach here to try to fold out, basically a hand. I mean, the other thing too about having a queen, as some people are pointing out, is that you block some of the full houses that he could have too, right? Whereas if you have ace king, like he actually might once in a great while. So, I mean,
it's really hard for me to bluff in this spot, I thought.
Yeah, but that's not going to matter to some of your opponents, though. You know what I mean? Some people still in the chat think that you're raising for value. Like 3 different people.
For sure.
I just think that I think that if you're going to go for a bluff here, then you have to go larger. But I don't think I would take this particular hand to do it. And yeah, I mean, it very well might be a fold in a spot like this. And again, it's one of these ones where you can look at hand composition and computer modeling would help this. Maybe this is a call in a solver world, but people will say that the guy's just not bluffing enough here for this to be a call. So it's an exploit. But anyways, no, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for the calls. Like I said, if you want to get on the show, shoot me an email, bart@crushlivepoker.com. There was a question here. I'll talk for a couple more minutes, and then I want to plug the TCH live stream. Of course, TCH Live, 5-5-10, Texas Match the Stack. Basically almost plays like a 10-20 game. That's going to be starting at the top of the hour. So like in 7 to 8 minutes, check out TCH Live. Tell them Bart sent you. I will be commentating on TCH Live next week, which means that I will most likely do this show, I would say, at 3 p.m. Eastern. I think that's when I'm going to schedule it for. 3 p.m. Eastern next week is when the show's going to be on. You'll see it in the events. And then I'll hustle out of here and I'll run down to TCH Live. So somebody had said, had asked me, wow, 337 concurrent viewers. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I mean, the channel has really taken off with all the Stone stuff and some of these other calls and stuff that I did. But someone had asked me, will JFK, Justin Curitis, will he ever work at the World Series again? I really, really hope not. By the way, if you guys have noticed that JFK, Justin Curitis, his Twitter has gone silent the last, say, 4 to 5 days. It's gone absolutely silent. And I'm fairly convinced that the people like, say, Rounder Life, whatever this guy's name is, I think he's a real guy. His name is Everett something. But these are all sort of pro-Postle troll-ish, or people that just have his back. Everett Caldwell, I think is his name. People that just have his back no matter what, or they're made-up accounts. I don't think that the Rounder Life one is a made-up account. But there was a discussion that I had, or there was an argument, because some people had come into the Postle Hands compilation that I did from last week, and there was a guy that was like, you don't have any evidence. You need hard evidence to prove that he was cheating. Nobody has any evidence. And I wish I had said this in the Jamin conversation that I had this week, but I want to respond to that with a comment. If anybody knows about the whole pot ripper scandal, and this is what brought UB and Absolute Poker down back in, 2007? Where, and I was reading about this because it had been a long time. I didn't know that actually the guy that was in second place who thought that he was getting cheated was Marco Traniello. Not Marco Traniello? Yeah, Crazy Marco. Or is Marco Traniello, is that Jennifer Harmon's ex-husband? Marco Johnson. Excuse me, Marco Johnson, I think. Yeah, Marco Johnson was the one that thought that he was getting cheated. Because on the river, like the guy called with 10 high. And then somehow the hand histories got leaked. They thought that there was actually a whistleblower in the company that sent the hand histories, and somebody basically took the hand histories and plugged them into a hand replayer. And you basically had this entire tournament in a live hand replayer where you could see that the guy made every single move correct. Every single hand he was playing as if he could see the cards. And that in itself was the evidence. That was the damning evidence. It was obvious. So what I will say to these people that say that there's no proof in the hand histories, you can't prove anything, that is the proof. And I'll give you one extreme example. And I know that this didn't happen, but let's say, for example, that Postle got dealt pocket kings and the guy to his left got dealt pocket aces and he folded pre-flop with no bets. Let's say he was under the gun and the guy with aces was to his immediate left and he folded. And let's say that he played every single other hand pre-flop, but the only hands that he didn't play pre-flop was kings when someone had aces to his left. Would that be evidence? And I think that for all of us that play poker, it would be a resounding yes. Of course, the hands can be evidence of his guilt. Now, if you want to say that the compilation that I made isn't strong enough evidence, I would disagree with you. I think it's very damning evidence, but you might make that argument. My response would be take that video that I did and show it to the top 500 poker players, however you want to define that. And I would almost guarantee that every single one of them would conclude just based upon that he's cheating, based upon the way that he played the hands. He was cheating. And that would be my response to that. But to say that you can't use hand histories as the evidence is ridiculous. Anyways, that's how I wrap it up, guys. Thank you very much for joining us and take a look at TCH Live here. Head over to TCH Live. It's going to start in 3 minutes. Bye-bye.